Hi, welcome back. We are in section 4.5, which is the last section in chapter 4, which is called Early Computational Methods. So we're going to be looking at two methods to multiply large numbers without the use of a calculator. And by the way, when you take the test in person, you will be allowed to use a calculator. However, for these two methods, you're going to have to show all of your work. So with that being said, you have to know how to do them. So the two methods that we're going to be looking at is known as the duplation and mediation method, which was used in Russia. And the other method to multiply two numbers together is called the lattice method. So if you went to the Florida school systems recently, I should say, you probably saw the lattice method used before. So hopefully that one's a blast from the past for you. So let's go ahead and look at objective 1 using the duplation and mediation method to multiply two numbers together. And while there's a lot of steps and it looks wordy, the actual method is not so bad. So let's just look through the steps first, and then I will work through a problem on this video with you. So the steps. The first step is to write the digits side by side. By doing this, it's going to create a left-hand column and a right-hand column. You will continuously divide the number on the left by 2 until you get the value of 1. If you don't get a whole number as your result, you will disregard the remainder and just write down the value in front of the decimal sign. So for instance, if you get 5.5, you're just going to write the 5 down. And then you're going to keep on doing this process until you get down to the value of 1. So you're going to have two things at this point. You're going to have the entire left-hand column done, and you will know the amount of rows you will be using. So the last row will have that value of 1 in it. Okay, so step number 3. Now we will pay attention to the number on the right. At this point, it's all alone. So you will take this number and you're going to double it. Another word for double is multiply by 2. And keep on doing this until you get down to the row that has the 1 on the left-hand column. So once you're done with all of your rows, you're going to now go back to that left-hand column and you're going to circle any even numbers. At that point, you're going to strike out the entire row that contains the even numbers. Then you will look at your right-hand column. And you're going to add all the numbers that are left in the right-hand column, and this will be your answer. So let's go ahead and check this out. All right, multiply 11 by 28 by using the duplation and mediation method of multiplication. Really quickly, just a note, make sure you know these two different methods because I'm going to literally ask you on the test to multiply using one method or the other. So if you use the wrong method, you will not get credit for that problem. Okay, so the directions said to write the numbers side by side, which I did. And then it said to take that left-hand number and divide it by 2. So 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. So I'm going to write down the 5 and ignore the 0.5. Now I'm going to take the 5 and divide it by 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, so I ignore the 0.5. Then I divide the 2 by 2, which is 1. Now I know how many rows I have. So if you want, you can, kind of put lines here just to keep track of what's what. And then the direction said to go on that right-hand column and double it. So we're going to take and multiply 28 by 2. So 28 times 2, the product is 56. 56 times 2 is 112. 112 times 2 is 224. By the way, this is a method of doubling. So the double of 28 is 56. The double of 56 is 112. The double of 112 is 224. Okay, now you're ready and you're almost done with this. You have to find any even numbers. So if I look through the left-hand column, I find a 2, which is an even number, and I'm going to strike out the entire row. Okay? So what's left, and I'm going to highlight it, in the right-hand column are these digits. So I'm going to take these digits and add them together. So 28 plus 56 plus 224. Okay, so 6 and 4 is 10, 10 and 8 is 18, carry the 1. 1 and 2 is 3, 3 and 5 is 8, 8 and 2 is 10, carry the 1, and 1 and 2 is 3. So the answer to this is 308. Now what I want you to do is anytime you do these, go on your calculator and double check it. Take 11 times 28. Does it equal 308? And the answer is yes, so we know we've done this correctly. Okay, next page. So we're going to have another example, multiply 34 by 22 using duplication and mediation method. So once again, the first step is to write these numbers side by side. You look at the left-hand number, that's going to create the left-hand column, and divide it by 2. So 34 divided by 2 is 17. 17 divided by 2 is 8.5, so I leave the 0.5 off. 8 divided by 2 is 4, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so once again, we're going to make some rows here. We got that done. And now I'm going to double the right-hand column. So if I double or multiply by 2, 22 doubled or multiplied by 2 is 44. 42 doubled or multiplied by 2 is 88. 88 doubled or multiplied by 2 is 176. 176 times 2 is 252, and 252 divided by, multiplied, geez Louise, 352 multiplied by 2 is 704. Okay, so now once again, how did I get these? The left-hand column I halved or divided by 2. The right-hand column I doubled or multiplied by 2. So the next step is to go to that left-hand column and find any even numbers. 34 is even. 8 is an even number. 4 is even, and so is 2. And at this point, you are going to cross these off. So let's get rid of these rows. That's what I'm doing right now. There's quite a few of them that go away. And what I'm left with is a value of 4, the 4 and 704. So I'm going to add these two together. So what is 44 plus 704? If we add these together, we get 847. So 748 is the answer, so I can check that by multiplying 34 by 22, and we're going to see that that answer is correct. Okay, so that is a duplication and mediation method. It takes some practice, so make sure you do your homework as soon as possible, because then you have the steps like right in front of you to kind of cement that in. So the second method of multiplying two numbers together that is not conventional is the lattice method. So this is a method I was talking about that perhaps you haven't seen before or you saw it in high school. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's say we're going to, or the directions said to multiply 33 by 52 using the lattice method. Okay, so to do the lattice method, the first step, or step 1, you're going to draw a matrix. Now a matrix has cells. So how do I do this? I'm going to take 33 and I'm going to take 52 and I'm going to arrange them this way. So I put 33 on the top, this will be the top of the matrix, and 52 on the right hand side of the matrix. So my next step is to draw a box. It has 2 columns and 2 rows because each one stands for each digit. And then I draw in diagonals. So this is the first step. A note about this is you got to make sure your diagonals are lined up. This is important because if they're not lined up, it causes trouble. So that's your first step. So your second step is to multiply each row with each column. Okay. Please note, if you get a product, and let me just fix that, guys, because that looks like a mess. So if you get a product, P-R-O-D-U-C-T, that is a 1-digit value, you will need to place a 0 in front of that value. Okay, so once again, if you get a value that is 1 digit, you're going to need to put a 0 in front of the digit. So here's a quick example. If I have 3 times 2, the product is 6. I'm going to have to write this up as 0, 6. Okay? All right, so let's see this in action. So once again, I'm just redrawing this quickly. Remember, I have 33 times 52. Putting in those diagonals again. And now I'm going to multiply each row by each column. Okay, so the column I'm looking at is 3 and the row is 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. So I put the 1 in the upper part of the diagonal and 5 in the lower in the cell. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to take 5 times 3 again. So 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, so 0, 6. And 3 times 2 again is 0, 6. Okay, you're ready for your last step. So step 3. We are going to add the diagonals Okay, if you get a sum that is 2 digits, carry the value to the next diagonal. Okay, so I'm going to highlight what I'm doing here. You're going to start in your bottom right. So the bottom right, I don't have anything to add, it's just 6. So I'm going to put the value of 6 there. Now I'm going to add on the next diagonal. So the next diagonal is right here. So I'm going to add 5 plus 0 plus 6. 5 plus 6 is 11. So I'm going to write that value out. So I'm going to write 11 here. And I'm going to carry the 1 to the next diagonal. Do you guys see how I circled that 1? Because I want to let myself know that, hey, I have to go ahead and use that. So let me just erase this stuff. All right, so here we go. We have 6 here, 11. All right, now I'm going to add this diagonal together with that 1 that got carried. So I got 1 plus 5, which is 7. So I'm going to write down that value. Okay, and finally, the last diagonal, I don't have to add anything because it's just 1. So I have 1, 7, 1, 6. So the last step is step 4. Read your answer starting at the top left-hand corner and working your way to the right hand corner. Okay, so with that step, I'm going to take this, and that's how I'm reading it off. So your answer is 1,716. You can check that on the calculator, and you'll see that that is correct. Okay, guys, so hopefully you understand the steps. Let's do a couple examples to kind of cement this in. All right, so the first example is got cut off, it looks like. Let me just check. Yeah, it did. All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. I'll just write it out really quick. So this is going to be an example. Multiply 32 by 128 using the lattice method. Okay, so once again, I have to make rows and columns. I'm going to take the larger value, 128, and put it on the top. That's just a preference. I like to do it that way. And then I put 32 on the side. And now I'm going to create my matrix. So I have 3 digits on top, so I have 3 columns, and I have 2 digits on the side, so I have 2 rows. Now I have to place in the diagonals. So that part's done, and voila. Okay, so the next step is to multiply rows by column. So 3 times 8 is 24. So I put 2 in the top, 4 in the bottom of that cell. 3 times 2 is 6, so I write down 0, 6. 3 times 1 is 3, 0, 3. 2 times 8 is 16, 1, 6. 2 times 2 is 4, 0, 4. And 2 times 1 is 2, so I put 0, 2. The next step is to add up along the diagonals, so I'm going to do this one first. So that's just 6. Then, whoops, let me write that in white. So that's 6. And then I'm going to add this diagonal here. 4 plus 1 plus 4. 4 and 4 is 8. 8 and 1 is 9. By the way, notice I didn't have to carry anything over because that's a 1-digit number. And then I'm going to do this next diagonal and add that up. 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. So I have to carry. I'm going to put the 0 down there, carry the 1 to the next diagonal. And I'm going to add up this next diagonal. 1 plus 3 is 4. And then the last one is just 0. So I'm just going to put it there just to show you. And the last step was to read off my values starting in the left-hand corner and working my way around until I get into the right-hand corner. So the answer to this one is 4,096. If I use my calculator and multiply these two numbers together, 128 times 32, I'm going to get 4,096. All right, so let's go now over the last example. The last example says to multiply 34 by 22 using the lattice method. Okay, so I'm going to put 34 and 22. And what I'm going to do is create the rows and columns. Since we have a 2-digit on top, we have 2 rows, and 2 digits on the side, we have 2 columns, and I said that backwards. 2 rows are going to make up the side values, and the top values will make up the columns. And then I put in the diagonals, and then I multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. And 3 times 2 is 6. And then I just add on the diagonals. So the first one I don't have to add, it's just 8. The second one is 8 plus 6, which is 14. So I put the 4 down there, carry the 1. I have 1 plus 6, which is 7. And then the last diagonal is just 0. So the answer is, when I read it off from the upper left-hand corner, working my way to the right, is 748. And if I check that on my calculator, I'll see that this is correct. And that's the end of section 4.5. So make sure that you filled out your notes and upload them to Canvas. do your homework as well.